So nobody's muted. So if you don't mind, good morning. Oh, can you mute them? Good morning. Just trying to sort out Zoom. It's all there's too many voices. Yeah. Okay, so thanks. Good morning. Thanks, Lawrence. All right. So we're on YouTube and Zoom this morning. So there's a gang of them on. Is that's my right side, isn't it? YouTube to the right of me, Zoom to the left. Here I am stuck in the middle. I've been listening to that song. So it doesn't matter. All right. Just a few announcements, and then we'll get into the talk. If I can find the announcements, I've written them down somewhere. 1 second. Good morning. Are we all sitting comfortably? See my fish? Love my fish. Okay. Just a few announcements, if we can. I'll do the simple ones first, and then some things that you'll take note to. I'm sure you know. We did have a plan. We did have a plan to have a daily Bible nugget. Well, we still have got a plan to do a daily Bible nugget, 10 o'clock in the morning on Zoom that you can watch later. We're just not quite sure of the technology, so we'll hold on that one. There's another idea, which is for kids' creche, that we have that we contact the parents of the little ones in the assembly, and we'll see if they'd like us to organise something, maybe 6 o'clock at night, a little story and a song, just so something that the kids have got to look forward to. They're cooped up in the house all day. So if the parents are good with that, and then those who've got the kids, and then those who normally do the creche will manage that between them. The idea is that we have a Zoom account, which is Medway. So for a lot of things, it'll be just one number you need. You won't need a different number every time somebody different. If they're doing something on behalf of the assembly, then they'll have an assembly number and one number to one ID number, which is not today's, by the way. That's my number, just to complicate things. Trying to keep it simple, but it's there's a lot to it all. So the kids' creche thing, as I say, we'll be in touch with the parents to see what they want, and then it'll be fairly straightforward to organise it. The things that we organise are for Medway. Other assemblies are looking after their own people locally. We might widen it a little bit if that was okay with the pastors. We might widen 1 or 2 things, but most assemblies are looking after their own people in their own way. Friday is down as a Revelation night, to be confirmed. I'd like to do it, and if I do it, I'd do it on Zoom. And if I do it on Zoom, yeah, but it's just whether I've prepared it enough before. Things are surprisingly busy. Next Saturday, time to be confirmed. We're going to have a Zoom Bible quiz. Chelsea and Nathan are going to organise that with prizes, virtual prizes, and just going back one as well for the children, where they are cooked up, really, they get a little bit of homework off school and this type of thing, and sometimes just to keep their minds occupied, perhaps a little bit of an educational challenge. When Kyle was small, which he was here when he was small, I remember it was one day before the meeting, I gave him a maths quiz, 10 maths questions. I used to get them off my dad when I was little, and he was there and he did them, and he shot back to me halfway through the meeting, stopped the meeting for me anyway. So I could answer this. So I answered this. He got 9 out of 10. He didn't get 15 times 15. I wonder, Kyle, if you're there, or Rachel, ask Kyle if he knows now what 15 times 15 is. But he enjoyed it. That was the point. So maybe you could offer to the parents little things that you could put, geography quizzes or whatever. So long as the parents are all right, and bearing in mind the kids might be totally disinterested. Apparently, Kyle is totally disinterested in Sudoku, and I think, well, I get that, Kyle. I really do. So just the thought, they're in the house as much as we, but they are children, and it's cold outside. A couple of other things, really. There's lots of groups. So Marion's on a group for sisters of some sort. Medway ladies, apparently. And then there's something called Sisters United. I'm on a group for the international pastors, which has been very good. But each to its own thing. So the Medway ladies I'm not on it, obviously. And I do know Marion's enjoying it, and that's great. But we did ask a little while ago that certain things are kept for certain things. So the Euro newsletter is the Euro newsletter. The Facebook group is supposed to be for information only, what time, who needs a lift, all that kind of thing. Now, what they've done in North London is they've created a separate group for people that want to share scriptures and talks and things like that, prayer requests. Okay, so it does need a place. That does need a place. At the moment, my phone pings and pings and pings, and there is a thing that if you get too much, you end up with very little. You know, I'm going to do a talk in a minute, and if I did a 45 scripture talk, the chances of you getting 1 or 2 are smaller than if I do 10 or 8 or 6. You can get too much coming in at once. So hopefully, and just another thing with the group for putting up talks and prayer requests and thoughts of the day and favourite scriptures, is that because it's open to all, then it would be open to somebody to grab the wheel of the assembly, really, and you know, that's not happening now. It has happened a little bit in the past with people we don't see anymore, and so we know it's open to that, and we don't want to leave it open to that. So we'd rather a group that, you know, if you want to pray for every request, some requests that come through, you think to yourself, well, maybe you'd be better off in your closet with that. Now, you couldn't answer that on the group, and nobody does. Nobody would give that answer because it's a group, but still though. So if people, there's nothing wrong with the sharing the scriptures. Although just one thing to mention, there was a sister a while ago. I think she was Australian, and she talked about a scripture that came to her in a particular situation that really got her out of it. And a year later, when she looked back at that scripture, she couldn't understand how it actually worked. That time was the right thing for her, just for her. And sometimes it is like that. But, you know, I'm not saying don't share them, but if we need a separate place for it, so we need to make another group. And that group also would just have oversight in not to rule over it and to control it, but just to watch over it. As I say, so the next day or two, we'll say about that. But if we can leave the other things, just for the sake of order, Euro newsletter, Euro news, Medway Messenger, I'm not on that. And then I've got an email list plus a few phone numbers, which I think I get to everyone. A couple of other things. Phil got married on Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning our time, 7:00 at night in Darwin. After midnight, no marriages in Australia. So he got married, and a few of us watched that on Zoom. Very nice. So that was good news. And also on the night before in Liverpool, a young lad got baptised that went to school with Phil. He baptised him. He received the Holy Spirit. I did mention, I think, in an email that as a pastor, I could be seen in certain circumstances as essential services. So I've been going to Gladys's to set it up on the internet. We've had to go a few times because we've messed it up. She's had difficulty, and then we forgot to give her the charger. So I've had to go back a couple of times, and that I'd see as essential. I try and do it from the gate. I try not to go in the house at all. Although I did for a minute, but I'm very mindful. of that. Some not so good news is in North London, as you know, a number of people have got the virus. Alan Campbell passed away last night, 10:30 last night. Alan died. He had coronavirus. He was in the hospital, and I was talking to Pastor Martin this morning, and he had a lot of health issues, Alan. So health was a struggle for him, and getting worse really. And I was just saying, last summer camp, I had a funny little thing with him last summer camp. There was one day he was sitting in during the daytime. I saw him sitting, his head was dropping, his face was very red, and I thought, oh, what's going on? So I had to find the nurses on site. Monica, I found Monica, and she went to see him, and he fell asleep because he'd eaten too much, and he was all red because he sat in the sun. So there was nothing wrong with him anyway. But he was saying to me last year at the summer camp how much he was loving it. He really was loving it, very appreciative, and he was saying the fellowship had grown in its lovingness. And I think you're right there, Alan. I thought, Alan's an eccentric character, a very eccentric character. Pastor Martin says he always loved the Lord, but every now and again his eccentricity would show itself. And I think in times past we would have been hard on his eccentricities because our understanding was still developing. But as years went on, then people like that, maybe we just loved them anyway. You know what I mean? Which is the wise way, by the way. But Alan's passed away, and and he have got. I believe the Allens maybe. I think the coronavirus. Some people get it mildly, and after 5 days it goes, and other people that's when it kicks off the problem. And Nick Aston also has got problems with it now as well, and the Allens, and hopefully they're over the worst, but they have had it severe. So there you go. Anything else that I need to announce that I've forgotten? Yeah, that'll do. Oh yeah, with Alan as well. It was 10:30 last night, and I spoke to Pastor Martin this morning. And I was asking after him, so he phoned, and they're going to let their people know about now in North London, and we will leave it to the pastors in North London to let people know. That would be the right way to go about it. All right. Yeah. So Bible open. Katerina from Perth there, sitting there as she was last night, and I can see a few faces on Facebook. Sally's there. Yesterday I could see John, and I thought, wow, John's come to the meeting. Because after all these years, but he was setting her up for it, looking after it as he does. It's good. Cheers. Acts chapter 17. At 4:00, we've got a talk from a presentation. We've got a testimony and a presentation from Australia. I was going to try and keep it a secret. I might still do that. Who it is? A kind of a surprise. And but it was up this morning, but Jonah took it down, and people were halfway through enjoying it. And it was meant to be scheduled for 40. He worked very hard to get it up. Some of this technology really takes a few goes, you know what I mean, and can have you pulling your hair out. But the effort's worth it. But that'll be up at 4:00. It's a presentation on good news, and Penny Jose, Chris Jose now, give that away, didn't I? And she gives her testimony just before, so that'll be good, something to look forward to. And we're going to do that the other next Sunday for the communion meeting. We're going to have an Australian pastor called Greg Drage. He's in Port Pirie, and he's going to bring the communion talk. He's been communicating in the group of pastors, and he put something up which is just brilliant about Nehemiah and everyone working on the wall and a couple of meters apart. And how when he heard the trumpet, he went to Zoom and to YouTube and the Nobles, and that's Paul Noble. Look, I was going to put it to one side to read it out to you, but I didn't. It was very good, and he's I know him a little bit. I've always wanted him to come over here. But next Sunday, he'll do the talk from Porkpity, which will be 10 o'clock their time. I hope their clocks are moving as well. And so he'll be our next week's communion talk. All right. Acts chapter 17. Need more tea. So if you want a title for the talk, it's remove the full stop. Okay, so hopefully that'll become clear somewhere along the line. And in verse 16, Acts 17 and verse 16, it says, Now while Paul waited for them at Athens, his spirit was stirred in him when he saw the city wholly given to idolatry. Therefore disputed he in the synagogues with the Jews and with devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him. Then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and the Stoics encountered them, and some said, What will this babbler say? Others some, he seems to be a setter forth of strange gods, because he preached to them Jesus and the resurrection. And it says he took him to one side and he asked him what those things mean. And just a few things. He's held in low esteem. What will this babbler say? It's just not a very nice thing to be called. It's not that bad either. It just means they hold him in low esteem. And it doesn't stop him. It doesn't stop him. And if you do value that more than you should, it will stop you. It just will stop you. So it's something you can work on. Work on your understanding. Look for the Lord to bless you, isn't it? That you get wiser and stronger. I think most successful people in any field have a way of minimizing other people's criticisms, and that's partly what brings them success. A lot of successful people are on social media, and you just get battered there, no doubt about it. And you've got to be tough, but maybe that's why they're successful. Yes, that was all right. Okay. So Paul is triggered by seeing the idolatry. Something triggers him, and it kind of makes him spring into action. And he sees something, and it's people. I suppose really he mentions these two schools of Greek philosophy, Epicureanism and Stoics. They had a philosophy of life. The Epicureans were into pleasure, not the same as hedonism. There's a thing called hedonism, which is just give yourself away, mate. They weren't that dumb. That's dumb. The Epicureans weren't that dumb. They did want to enjoy life. The Stoics were more not looking for pleasure, just looking to what have I put down? They believed in you could learn how to live your life through natural order, and some of the things they another thing they had was some of the things they believed we would agree with, right? Part of their philosophy was that a man's philosophy, a man's true religion, would be known by his deeds and not by his words. And you think, well, I would agree with that. That's for sure. There's a famous one. He came a bit later called Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman Caesar, and but he was a Stoic. Some Roman Caesars loved the Greeks and Greek philosophy. And Marcus Aurelius, one of his quotes was, "Don't sit around saying what a good man should be one." There again. No doubt about it. You'd agree with that. And so why is Paul moved to talk to them? And as you go through, you'll find where their philosophy in life, as right as it can be, comes to an end, and it comes to an end before they get to know God. There's a lot of stoicism about. There always has been. It's keep calm and carry on. It's a stoical saying. It's a stoical saying. Well, up to a point it is. And when I've been out and about in the last couple of weeks, as I say, I'd make a good news reporter. Tell you the news from Strood. I was in Aldi in Strood, and I was talking to the guy. I had a good chat with the guy on the till, and because he was slow this time, they're normally 1,000 miles an hour. But so I was chatting away, and he was. I asked him how have people been, and he's saying there's one fella. I don't know if he's local to Strood or he got it out of a national paper, and his neighbour didn't like him going out. He went out 5 times in one day, so they called the police on him, and the police checked his phone, and his phone told on him, and he got fined £30. So there's the Strood gossip for the day. All right, and but I was asking him how he was, and he said, well, my philosophy is if you get it, you get it. And the sooner you, like for the likes of him, he's a young fella, he said, the sooner I get it, the better. Because he's surrounded, like they put this plastic screen now in Aldi, so the salesperson is covered. And I said to him, that's stoicism. You know, and it's good in its way. You can understand that he's at peace, where a lot of people are troubled or annoyed. Not everyone's in the same boat, by the way. You have to talk to them before you find out what the face under the face is like. And so I just said, things about the gospel, and I give him a card, and he put it quickly to one side, and we see what happens. But yeah, the problem with stoicism is it comes to an end before any action takes place. It's accepting. It's a little bit like Buddhism. When I used to work in East London, I used to work in an off license. Did you know that off licenses, by the way, have been deemed essential services, and they remain open? People need that at the moment. They do anyway. Some of them anyway. It's not for anxiety half the time. It's just to cope with life being trapped. And anyway, I worked in this off license, and I liked East London. I really did. And next door was a grocer's shop, and I used to know very well the fellow that owned the grocer's shop, an old London man, and a proper Cockney. And people would always, you say to people, "How are you going?" And they say, "I'm surviving. I'm surviving." That was a very common answer. And he said to me one day, he says, "I hate it when they say that." In his Cockney accent, "I hate it. I hate it when they say that. I hate it." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well," he said, "everybody's surviving." He said, "Everybody's surviving." He said, "What does it mean?" And you think, and his point was, you can do better than that if you stop just surviving. And I suppose the thing is that in itself it's good, but if you put a full stop on it, it becomes something that really is you want to remove the full stop and move on. James chapter 2. You bow for this one. Hopefully, in time to come, we've got a few people on Zoom. It still takes a lot to set this up in the morning. I'm all over the place, but hopefully we can look at doing the gifts because we've got Zoom and open and closing in prayer. Even though I forgot to do that, I just forgot. But we can definitely do that via Zoom, and in a little bit later we've got communion. So yeah, James chapter 2. So picking it up somewhere, and never mind so much for today. What goes before it says, even so faith. Because there's a thing with stoicism. If I get it, I get it, and I'm not afraid. That's hard to discern from faith. It is hard to discern from faith, and do you actually need to? Do you need to? It's not. But let's read. It says, even so, faith. Yeah, verse 17. If it has not works, is dead, being alone. A man may say, "Thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. Then it says, thou believest, this is to the general public, I think it's just, oh man, thou believest that there is one God, thou dost well. The devils also believe and tremble. But wilt thou know, O man, O vain man, that faith without works is dead? And so to have that kind of faith, just a belief, but not an action, even a peace, an acceptance of things, and it's fatalism really, and but it says also that you believe there is one God, you do well to acknowledge the good and go from there rather than just tackle the fact that it isn't complete. So you can salute when Collins and family broke down on the way to winter camp, and I think this is light compared to that day. That was they were on the hard shoulder of the motorway for about 4 or 5 hours, freezing cold, in the car in the dark. For different reasons. But anyway, when he got picked up, we got the family, and then Collins came with, I think, Ephraim maybe, and the man that picked up the car. So the man that picked up the car, he drove it to Lancaster to the school, and then I was getting them in, and we were witnessing to him, Turkish fella, and saying what went on there and inviting him quite strongly, actually, in a good way, but still nevertheless strongly. And he said something about God being in his heart. I can't remember exactly what he said. And Collins replied, and he said, "That's a good start." I thought, that's a good answer. So rather than tackle him, go into him, he kind of removed the full stop to say that's okay, but now there's more. There's more, and so there was harmony, but the idea is moving on. Faith is by faith, we move and we grow, and like Alan Campbell was saying about the fellowship, the assemblies in the UK last year about the love's grown. I think I actually agree with you, Alan. I really do, and progress step by step, if you like. And I suppose for us, not to be stoical, no full stops about what you can and can't do. Yeah, maybe now that's true to a degree, with our own natural limitations. But don't put a full stop on it. That would make you a bit of a stoic, really. Which you do find in Christianity. But it did say if they believed that they did well. Next page. Yeah, Job 28. I'll just go with the way it's typed out. I did. I'm not sure I typed it out in the order that I really want it, but. Verse 1, it says, surely there is a vein for the silver and a place for gold where they find it. Iron is taken out of the earth and brass is molten out of the stone. He sets an end to darkness and searches out all perfection, the stones of darkness and the shadow of death. And you've got quite a number of verses here about mining. It's about mining and how mankind can dig for precious things. And he's even then, the Job's time, they're so skillful. There is a place for gold where they find it. They knew what to do. They knew how to get it. The mines were deep and they trapped the water. It says that in all these verses. It describes them turning a mountain upside down. And we know in the modern days he did that with gunpowder to get it stuffed. He had explosives. What he did in those days, I don't know, but he still did it. No stopping them. A lot of slave labor involved in all that, and then he'd get it. And there's a big effort to. It was very costly and difficult, and it goes through a number of verses about man. It's nice to read. And in verse 9, it says, he puts forth his hand upon the rock. He overturns the mountains by the roots. I still think this is talking about the miner. He cuts out rivers among the rocks, and his eye sees every precious thing. He binds the floods from overflowing, and the thing that is hid brings he forth to light. So they have to manage water if you're digging underground. In verse 12, it says, but where shall wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Man knows not the price thereof, neither is it found in the land of the living. The depth says it's not in me, the sea says it's not within me. It cannot be gotten for gold, neither shall be silver weighed for the price thereof. It cannot be valued with the best gold, or the precious onyx, or the sapphire. It says, and then it continues about what, just where it can't be found. and in verse 20, it says, whence then cometh wisdom, and where is the place of understanding? See, it's hid from the eyes of all living, and kept close from the fowls of the air. Destruction and death say, we've heard the fame thereof with our ears. God understands the way thereof, and he knows the place thereof. For he looks to the ends of the earth and sees under the whole heaven, to make a wait for the winds and a wait for the waters by measure. I'm reading out too many verses. And where are we going? I'll find a bit that I need now. I'll find it. It says the fear of the Lord. I'll just quote it. The fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from understanding is evil. And one of the things in this, I think I might not have it written down. Where can it be found? And the Stoics and the Epicureans, they had life philosophies, which in part were true, but would never find. It says the world by wisdom knew not God. And you can hear lots of quotes. I used to like quotations before I was spirit-filled. And but you weren't going to get there that way. Absolutely weren't going to get there. And the fear of the Lord, or to have respect for, or to have insight, and to depart from evil, that's understanding. Some things in the scriptures can be difficult to understand, but departing from evil isn't complicated. People know, and where are we going? So we got into a bit of a muddle. So it's hid from the sight of all living. So if the philosophies of man, as interesting as they are sometimes, and as containing true sayings, in the New Testament, Paul will often quote Greek philosophy and Greek poetry, just in the little thing. And sometimes we can say something from keep carry on, but only in its right place. Matthew chapter 16. Not a lot more, actually. Not a lot more scriptures anyway, or pages. I'm not promising anything. This is why I'm on YouTube and Zoom, because on Zoom someone can take over and mute me. People have threatened. I've got their names noted. So Matthew 16 and verse 13. It says, when Jesus came to the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, some say that thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said to them, but whom say you that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said to him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And here you've got the revelation that Jesus is the Son of God, which is the foundation for our walk. Often you'll hear people say what springs when they give the testimony of that day, when they received the Holy Spirit, that day they knew. Some of them came from not believing or feeling that it probably was the case to knowing. I can't remember that actually being the thing with me. You know what I mean? I can't remember it anyway. And but you get this revelation that no man and no philosopher, and no amount of work or effort or Sherlock Holmesness or studying books would ever get you. Nick Ashton, in his testimony, he says he met people that were spirit filled, and he was reading all the books, mostly about the Lord. It was Christianity he wanted, not Greek philosophy. But he realized he was getting nowhere, and they'd gotten there. So he put himself into their hands, and they told him what he must do to be saved, the works of faith. He removed he was going round in a circle. He was looking, but he was going round in a circle. And without the revelation, there could be no forward motion. And here, Peter's got it. He's got this revelation, and Jesus said, "You're blessed." He said, "You couldn't have got that from natural, anything natural. You got it from the Lord." And then he says, "Upon this rock will I build my church." And some people say it's Peter himself. Well, I don't think so. You could give a half an hour talk on that, which is not today, and most of us know a little bit about that. But the rock is the revelation. It's so sure and solid, and it's ours now. Now we know. It's interesting in Job. It says death and destruction say that we've heard the fame thereof. Sometimes when things get turned upside down, like now, people start to think a little bit. Funerals are good for ministers, because you've got people's ear far more than you would have if it was any other event with those people. You haven't got everyone's ear. Some people are. When you remove the full stop, you find a brick wall. Some people, but you've got to find that. And then when you do find that, don't spend too much time there. There is a thing with sowing the seed. Some on the wayside, some on the good ground. The force. Somewhere the thorns, somewhere the root wasn't big enough. If you overdo the waste ground, you'll get no results and maybe get a little bit disappointed. It's good to recognise when you're talking to a brick wall. I had a lady. We had a big tent outreach, and somebody brought me this lady. He witnessed to it on the road, and she'd come along, and she sat there with me, and she was saying, she knew all the ministers in Medway, and did you know this one and that one, and tried to talk to her about the gospel, and nothing. So I walked away politely. I didn't do it impolitely, but I walked away, and the sister that brought her wasn't very happy that I walked away. So I had this other lady that come from Australia that I had a great regard for, especially when it comes to evangelism. She was the business. And I said, "What did you think of me walking away?" She said, "You might as well have been talking to a brick wall." And I was really glad. I suppose it comes a little bit in the last scripture, but we have to be honest. There's a kind of Christianity which is all your feelings are covered up to put a face on. And I know I say that all the time, so there you go. Personal revelation now it comes through us. Or a lot of it comes through us. People may be praying and they may be thinking now. I'll tell you a little story. I think it was me and Jerry, and we were in South London, and we did a door knock in Pens. It was actually nice. We had a nice day out. Those things are a little bit hit and miss. They're actually quite good, but obviously, I do understand why they make people nervous. And so we went on this door knock. It was a very enjoyable day. Sometimes I haven't enjoyed them so much, but knocked on this guy's door, and he wasn't interested, shaking his head and curling his lip a little bit, but not to the point where you'd think he was actually being rude. And And then he turned around and he just said, he said, I don't get it. He said, when Jesus comes back, like this is him, he says, everyone's going to want to see him. And there won't be a place that fits all those people. He says, how will that work? And I'd just been reading, actually, the week before in Zechariah about him coming in the clouds and how just the order of things and how it works. We meet him in the air and we come down, and he's on his way down, so we meet him going up on the way down, and then we all come down. That seems to be how it works. And I just enjoyed reading that. So I told him that. And he was all right. He didn't do anything more. And I realised that in his reasoning, he's gone round and round. And when he got to a certain point, there's a full stop. And because we knocked on his door, we removed the full stop, and we gave him the chance for his understanding to move on, which he wouldn't have got by himself. So, sometimes when it comes to witnessing, you think you've got to know it all, and you're going to have to do it all in one go. Well, you probably won't do anything if you think that. I need to lose weight, and getting locked in the house ain't good for that. And but I know when I've been successful, you start and you accept small steps, you get into it. But if you think on day one, I've got to lose such a large number, right? It's so easy to not start. You're just giving yourself too much of something to think about. Just the next step. Yeah. First Timothy chapter 2. This was from yesterday. You're all right there? I see your faces on Zoom, look. Pay attention. No, it's good. Yeah. First Timothy chapter 2 and verse 1, it says, I exhort, therefore, the first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and all that are in authority, that we, he's actually talking about himself there as well, that we may, maybe not, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. But this is good and acceptable in the sight of God and our Saviour, who will have all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, who gave himself for a ransom for all, to be testified of in due time. Whereunto I am ordained a preacher and an apostle. I speak the truth in Christ, a teacher of the Gentiles in faith and verity. I think that's the last one I wanted to read in those. Okay, so praying for those in authority. As I spoke about that before, it's something maybe from time to time. If you've got your neck in a knot, as they say, it can give you peace. The fact that you put it to the Lord, and then you can pray for working out for yourself. Really, it says that He will have all men to be saved. There is a Calvinistic doctrine, predestination, and there are one or two scriptures that might seem to fit that. Where because God has chosen us before the world began, and He knows those that are His, then He's actually not chosen some people, and they're totally predestined. It's this fatality again, it's that's not true. Jesus died for all, and He does know the end from the beginning, all that kind of stuff. But his will would be that they would act. The fact that He knows which ones will and which ones won't, you can try and work out if you want. But what we do know is the people we come across. There's no reason to in any way believe that God's put an X on them. Which partly Calvinism does. Some good things in Calvinism, but that's not one of them. It says He gave Himself for a ransom for all, to be testified of in due time, or in our time. And I was reading about Neville Chamberlain. Neville Chamberlain was just before the Second World War, and he completely got the wrong idea of how to deal with Adolf Hitler. He wanted to placate him, to make peace with him, to give him a few things that he went away and left us alone, and never mind what he does to anybody else. Not our business. Let's just look after ourselves. Totally the wrong idea, and it's called appeasement. And this little thing I was reading about him, it was about a book someone had written, which looked kind of interesting. But I've got lots of books that I haven't read anyway, so I have to be careful with what I buy. But it did look good though, and it was saying that the Chamberlain was a man of his time. It describes the character man. So the unfortunate thing, it wasn't the time that he lived in. He belonged to another age. It was basically saying when things were different, when manners were different, when that kind of thing maybe would have been the way to go. But the time he was living in, you had to get up off your seat and stand up. That's what had to happen. So he's to be testified of in our time. The Lord is to be testified of in our time by us as the opportunities arise. And if we're not managing to take our opportunities, then get rid of a few full stops. It works, and little by little, there's a thing as well. The benefits are, there's a thing with life generally that it has difficulties. I mean, we've got Zoom up, we've got YouTube up, and I tell you what, mate, there's a lot of pain. Chris Jost did something for us last night and this morning. 6 times he filmed himself. 6 times his camera failed. When I was trying to get it up last Sunday, it drove me down the bend. I really did, trying to upload it. First of all, I did it like this, but it cut off after 10 minutes. And it's such a lot of messing about. But you know that it's worth it. You know that it's worth the effort. And there's many things in life like that. Like Phil got married on Tuesday, and he's taken on something that'll have more problems than if he was on his own. There'll be odd little, now there's 2 of you being one. You can almost say you've got twice the difficulties, but the benefits are great. If they go on like we did to have children, then again, there's some things. Then if your child goes out and doesn't come home until after 10 o'clock, you're more worried about them than you would be about yourself if you were out, obviously. So there are difficulties in getting involved. But the Stoics just didn't know God. They didn't know God. And so little by little, by the way, I'm learning things after quite a long time in the Lord now. Me and Jerry are months apart. Where is he? He's gone. Oh yeah, there's his big hand sticking up on Zoom. See his hand there, sticking up on Zoom. We're only months apart. He's a couple of months older in the Lord than me. Forever, a couple of months older than me in the Lord. But I'm still learning things. That's the point. I'm still getting rid of a few. Sometimes you have full stops and you don't realise you've got them, and then circumstances bring them up and bring them to your attention. Yes. Okay. They're on. Phil and Michaela on. What was it? On YouTube or on Zoom? Hang on. There he is, look. Make him big. Go on, anyone on YouTube will see him then. No. I'll leave it. No, sorry. Yeah, you can. I'm in the middle of it. All right. You distracted us then, Phil and Michaela. Yeah. Congratulations. Okay. Announcements. Oh yeah. Little interesting thing I thought anyway. We had a teacher of the Gentiles in faith and verity, and he amplified it to a teacher of the Gentiles in the realm of faith and truth. They can't get where we are. They just can't get there. But we can tell, we can bridge for them, or offer a hand in if they don't want to take it. That's another thing. It's interesting. It's an interesting job. You learn a few things to avoid, obviously, but you find out a lot about people, and most people, quite likable, really, and in no way threatening. Sometimes you got to accept that their disesteem of you because of what you say, but who cares anyway? That the people most involved in with Joe Public, if Joe Public goes not so good on them, you'll see them get blessed. So the Lord leaves himself, but not without testimony, if you like. And as I say, it makes life interesting. But the thing that caught my eye was Verity, and in Greek, there's the Greek fella there over there somewhere checking on me. There he is. Look, Aletheia. He always does that, doesn't he? Aletheia. He's trying to. No, your mic's off, Angelo. You're not having it on. Not this time. It's not thumbs up either. So there you go. Now, I know a little bit about Greek, next to nothing. I know a little bit about Hebrew and slightly more than Greek, but still next to nothing. Any word that begins with an A is a negative word. Do you know that? So for example, amethyst comes from the word amethos. It means no wine. And it's the 12th stone of the foundation of the New Jerusalem. Soberness, amethos, no wine. So then aletheia means no covering. It's I was looking a little bit into it. It's quite good. It's to do with reality rather than illusion. Reality is what's going on, and reality is that people. I like the thing yesterday in one of the talks about not being too separate from people. That your idea of them is your imagination and not them. It doesn't lead to bigger heart. It doesn't lead to a bigger heart. So you want your idea to be about people is what you actually see, especially if you have your little chats, and then what's under the first mask comes out, and you can go further. And mostly, as I say, you might get a bit of disdain, but sometimes you get a bit of an interest, and you end up better off. I'll just read you about aletheia. Uncoveredness, truth, but not merely truth is spoken. Truth of idea, reality, sincerity. Straightforwardness, reality rather than illusion. The opposite of uncoveredness is coveredness, but in the sense of forgetfulness. It's out of mind, it's forgotten, and one thing that's we can do is bring people into bring the word of God into people's mind. I have, talking about reality and illusion. The future is your guess. It's your guess. I have guesses, educated guesses in some cases. And one thing with this business is I think that after it's over, people will have a great appreciation of going out for a coffee, even going to work. Going to work now will be like a holiday. They'll have a great appreciation of it. That may not last long before they forget all this. That's my thing, right? I might be wrong. The Bible says that a woman, when she's in travail, when she has the joy of the delivery, forgets the pain. She forgets the pain, and so the world may go back quickly to being circular in its full stopness and its closeness. But at the moment, there's lots of people now that death and destruction say we've heard the fame thereof. And so the little conversations going around, and maybe a time of more opportunity for us. And certainly when things settle down again, which hopefully they will, and hopefully soon, that anything that's changed for us will remain changed, because we are a people that are changing. We're on the move. We really are. I'll leave it there. And all the people said, okay, we're going to have a little communion. So if you've got something to take for communion, there's Corinthians 11 out. There's 3 cups there. And a little squash. Hang on. I've got some grapes. Squash. Get some juice out. It's not too easy. And that'll do. Go on, Lawrence. Have a look. There ain't much juice in the grapes. So we're just going to take communion. If you unmute the mics as well, just a tiny little bit will do, Lawrence, because we want to do this without taking 20 minutes. Should have done that before. You should have done that before, shouldn't you? Okay, so on Zoom, you're all unmuted. So I'm going to ask a couple of people to give thanks for us. So, yeah. No. Just leave the pictures. Do that quickly, please. I can hear the baby. On Zoom, all your mics are on now. So if you could just see what's needed. Yeah. So mute them all again, Lawrence, and leave us Paul Nugent. Just mute them all and then unmute too. Jono. Sorry, just a sec. All right, no, he hasn't. He's in control. Okay, so just going to take communion, and it's interesting. You know, one of the things I want to get into, maybe when we're not meeting, is why we meet, and one of the reasons we meet, obviously, is to take communion. And sorry, it's just we get more organised next week than we are this week. To take communion, and Jesus says to do this in remembrance of me. There is an uncoveredness about what brought us here. And we didn't dig it out. You know, we didn't. You might have been searching. Some people were searching, like Chris was all over the place, even geographically was moving around looking for the Lord. But you find him because he reveals himself to you, often through brethren. First of all, through brethren, and then through the receiving of the Holy Spirit. So he says to do it in remembrance of him, and the sacrifice, you know, and all that it's brought. In those that don't know him, the name of Jesus can be an idea that, you know, as I say, is disdained. He was crucified on a cross, and in the days of Paul, when he was still doing that, that really is not a way of impressing people. But if you look long enough, that's his people. You know, we're not particularly looking at the man on the cross in that sense. If you look long enough at his people, you'd be impressed. You know, so we remember the Lord's death till he come. Who have we got? If we ask Jono to give thanks before we take the bread, and Paul before we take Paul Nugent. So keep together. So we know what the DJ committee wants to do. Maybe something to do now committee mode, at your church or committee or good things and better things, or we make ourselves fit. As you know, say, that's the thing. Thank you for your words. We thank you for your guidance. We thank you, Lord, that we know you for who you are and not who the world would manage us according to who you are. Bless us, Lord, Father, the opportunity, Lord, Father, and an ever-growing heart, Lord, God, an ever-growing heart towards those, Lord, Father, Jesus has good things. I'll turn off YouTube. You can carry on. There's a bit of fellowship we had on Zoom. We'll unmute all the mics. You know, and as I say, 4 o'clock, just on YouTube, Chris Jones, Penny, and then next Wednesday will be the next day, and then we keep it at 400. Daily thing, crash. You? Yeah, I know, yeah. A daily thing, crash, Friday night, and quiz on Saturday. There you go. Empathy.